Intelligence comes in all forms, shapes, and sizes. And today we're going to talk about emotional intelligence. To hear our thoughts and more, stay tuned to this episode of The Den. The Den, powered by the Lyons Group, a show dedicated to exploring hot topics in real estate, local happenings, and industry trends. We're a small team of professionals approaching $400 million in sales and nearly 2,000 local transactions. You're listening to time-tested experts and industry leaders. Here's a refreshing look at real estate happenings and more. Welcome to The Den. Okay, welcome to this episode of The Den. My name is Ben Lyons. I'm your host. And today we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence. Some people call that EQ versus IQ. But before we get to that, let me introduce my friends, my partners, my co-hosts, the fellow members of the Lyons Group. To my left, Paul, hand me the Rockberry, Aspen, the Ninja Groen, and the boss, Shannon, Martin Martinez. Again, my name is Ben, no emotional intelligence whatsoever, Lyons, and I'm hosting the show today. But we're going to dive right in and talk about EQ versus IQ and why emotional intelligence is so important, whether you're buying or selling a property or just your life in general. This episode's going to shed some light on that. So, Shannon, I love this part. This
really?
is I know. Okay. I
specifically asked you one thing.
I know. See, and I could feel, a lot of people, our viewers don't know. I throw this to whoever
makes eye contact.
Yeah. Whoever makes eye contact or I sense a little tinge. I'm going to you first, Shannon Martinez.
All right.
Okay. Emotional intelligence. Tell me or talk to me about what your thoughts are about emotional intelligence and why it would be important to understand it.
Okay. Well, being completely unprepared, I think the importance of it is if you want to be successful in your life, if you want to be good at your job, if you want to have good relationships with people, that is definitely a skill that we're all going to need. We're going to have to learn how to, be a little more maybe intellectual with our emotions and learn not to just do the knee-jerk reaction emotions that we naturally have as children and some people grow up with and never get rid of. It's definitely a skill that you have to hone, you have to work on, you have to think about, you have to learn to slow yourself down, think things through. But I don't think you're going to probably be successful in your relationships, whether they're work relationships, whether they're relationships with your customers, your clients, your family members, your significant other, even your children, unless you can learn those skills. I, in full disclosure, have not always practiced that.
I think we fell off the wagon this morning, didn't we?
A couple times.
That's okay. And all in good fun, right? And good humor. But to your point, a lot of emotional skills, like your soft skills, dealing with your emotions, they're grained in you when you're young. Right? You listen and watch your surroundings, your parents to a large degree. And so you pattern or model people that you grow up with, and that becomes kind of ingrained in you.
Right.
And you have to become aware of it.
And there's actually 5 principles of emotional intelligence.
Not prepared.
No, I was just going to say, you sandbagger.
Okay. No, I have to say, I had a few notes written down. I left my notebook at home. So I just grabbed the 5 because I knew I wouldn't remember them off my head. This is the only thing I looked up. Self-awareness, self-regulation, empathy, social skills, and motivation. You have to have those in you to be able, I guess, to practice emotional intelligence. And it makes sense. It makes sense because how else are you going to really interact well with people and successfully deal with all these situations and people that come across our life, unless we're just an emotional roller coaster, which we see all the time in our industry. We see, people are very much wrapped up in the sale or the purchase of their home. And then we have other realtors who are very wrapped up in, they're so concerned about caring for their customer, or they're so concerned about their compensation, or all these other factors that are there, that they lose track of what the important components of those relationships are. And without those, you're not going to get to the end of it anyway.
Yeah. So you have 5 pillars there, right? Read those pillars again, if you don't mind.
Self-awareness. So
Self-awareness.
it's the ability to understand and anticipate your own emotions and how they affect others.
Okay. So being aware of your emotions versus, because I think that's the biggest problem, is that a lot of people just aren't aware. Like, I'm not aware of how I respond to these situations.
Well, we've seen the people who wear them on their face, even if it doesn't come out of their mouth. You already know. Everybody looked at Aspen. Did you see that?
No amount of Botox can hide those emotions. It's just going to keep coming through. I try. It doesn't come out of my mouth anymore.
But you don't really have the RBF. You don't really have, do you?
Oh, give me a break. Perfect. Paul's over there just like not even looking over here.
He's just trying to stay out of trouble.
Yeah. Okay.
Self-regulation.
Self-regulation.
Yeah. So the ability to control and regulate your emotions, adapt to change, maintain a healthy outlook. Empathy, obviously, we know that. The ability to understand other people's feelings. Mm-hmm. Social skills, the ability to build and maintain healthy relationships. And motivation, the ability to understand how to spur others into action.
Okay. Fair enough. Thank you for going through the pillars there. Now, Aspen, out of those 5, how much do you use on a daily basis, and specifically in this career?
I actually put a lot into emotional intelligence. I think it's kind of your job as an adult to do the work on yourself. And, maybe that's therapy or talking to other people or bouncing it off or accepting, criticism or critique whenever it comes your way. I do think with this job, and I kind of say thick skin, but I really do think it comes down to emotional intelligence. People are going to, it's an emotional thing. It's the biggest purchase they've ever made. Also, on the other side, they're feeling, the same pressure. So one thing that I've really loved about this job is I've made some incredible friends from it, but we do go at it sometimes. And I think it takes, emotionally mature people to be like, that was just work. It's not personal. And you have to let it go. And they're not meaning it in any particular way. Sometimes people can get to the personal level. And I think that just shows low emotional intelligence as well. But we're all human and we all make mistakes. And I think acknowledging it and owning up to it and apologizing can go a really long way.
Right.
Yeah. Learn from that. And that builds your foundation. I mean, that's something that you learn over the years. And how to cope with what are your triggers, right?
Yeah.
Because some things set you off like that, and others, it's a long fuse.
I really don't like when people yell at me. It's only happened a handful of times, but I pretty much just end up shutting it down instantly because I know if they continue to yell at me, I'm going to get upset. So I just kind of say, okay, we're going to take a step here. You can be upset, understand, but you can't yell at me.
Yeah.
And I think people, pretty much everyone but one person has been like, I know it's not you. I'm just frustrated. I'm sorry. And I'm like, I know you're frustrated. This is a frustrating situation. And like I said, it's only happened a few times, but that for me is a big trigger. I really don't like to be yelled at. Yeah. So pretty much anything else, you can be frustrated, mad, we can work through it and we will figure out a solution. And most of the time we're going to be right there with you. We're also frustrated. We're also trying to, figure out a solution, but it's just how you come across to other people. I think it's important.
Communication's one of the biggest things on there. And a lot of people that they're used to communicating in a specific way. And again, this kind of goes back to maybe how you were raised or environment you were in. And if there was a lot of shouting and elevated emotions in your household, I just think, and not to pick on the East Coast by any stretch, but Paul, this is
what?
Boston. Now, but this is a good example, right? Because my brother moved out to the East Coast and I hadn't seen him for a few years. And I went out there and we were in New York. He was going to school in Manhattan. And we get in line. He's like, hey man, get out of the way. And, and just starts kind of shouting and pushing. And I'm like, hey, it's okay, Chad. And he's like, no, this is how you communicate out here. And I'm like, whoa, this is weird. And no one took offense to it out there. But me being more from the West Coast, like that was very abrasive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we look at people from the West Coast that come in and say, calm down as soft.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's just the culture over there. And you get callous to it when you live there. But, now when I go back, it's the same thing. I'm like, damn, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah. Everyone's got a chip on their shoulder. That's what it seems like. right? But it may not be that you may be receiving that wrong. That's just the way people communicate. They're a little more, the hands in the air, a little higher volume.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people that are a little more meek or mild, that's pretty confrontational to them.
Yeah, usually the hellos are insults. So
yeah.
I can't say any of them on YouTube. So probably can, but we'll lose viewers.
Yeah. Well, and so communication and awareness is a big thing, but also understanding where you're at. I mean, like, you said not having soft skin or maybe getting a little more calloused in the business, and not really calloused. I mean, you worded that in the appropriate way, Aspen, but over time in this business, you do build up a little layer of like, okay, I'm not going to get super emotional about this because I've seen this 100 times and they're super emotional. So your job is to maybe bring them down, help them match your energy. Mm-hmm. And we talked a little bit about this before the podcast, because even in this room right here, we have 4 top producing realtors that have been doing this for a long time. We have disagreements and we don't see eye to eye on how we're going to.
No, we don't.
No, I'm just always right.
No.
And it's good and it's healthy, but I don't think we would be in this position if we took disagreements as not constructive conversations. Paul, you want to piggyback on that at all?
Well, I think one of the best things about emotional intelligence that I can't remember who said it, and it might have been you, but like, you want to be the calm in the storm. Like, you want to be, if you're in a group, you have customers and you're in a tough deal, you want to be, I think the metaphor was you're in a whitewater rafting boat going down the rapids, and you don't want to be the guy at the helm going like this. Everybody looks back for you, and you're going, oh my God.
Yeah, you're screaming.
But you want to be the one going, just paddle that way. You want to be the one driving the boat instead of reacting to all the waves that are coming at you and crashing over the bow. So I think the emotional intelligence that we use the most is being that calm, professional, sounding board for them when they're having, when they get really emotional. So if we match emotion with our customers too, it's usually a sign of low emotional intelligence, because it's hard to bring them. If you get really emotional with them, it's hard to be that, voice that brings them back to the middle, to get them unemotional again.
Yeah. And there is an art to matching someone's energy and then bringing them down. And that's a next level thing. Someone's really heated and you can get in that mode too, but also bring them down. There's an art to that.
Yeah. But I think that
can be dangerous. It's a slippery slope.
But I think that too, you have to have a good relationship with somebody to be able to do that. I mean, I don't think a surface level customer realtor relationship, you're able to do that, because I haven't had that experience. I mean, I guess maybe a master at it could do it, but I think matching emotion for me has never worked.
Yeah. It's
in this job.
It'd be a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
For sure. Or even tempo, right? Maybe not even emotion, but tempo.
Now matching tempo is smart.
Yeah. Because some people, it's like they want it boom, 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 boom. And you can meet them there. Boom, 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 boom. And then you can slow them down a little bit and say, okay, this is more of a process that we go through. So, so interesting. I mean, I like the fact that, you have to be the calm in the storm, right? They're looking to you as a realtor, specifically in transactions, to be the steady hand, to get them to shore when the waves are coming in. And we've talked a lot about that. But Aspen, share some thoughts on what is more important, IQ or EQ?
I don't know. I put a lot into both of them.
Yeah. Expand on that.
You have to be emotionally mature enough to stay calm, like Paul was saying, especially in this job. And especially if you get into leadership roles, you're going to disagree with people. If you're me, probably pretty often. So, you just have to I tend to ask a lot of questions. I want to know all the information, and I have no problem kind of just to keep going until I figure out and we're all on the same page and I know exactly what's going on. But I do think you have to also be intelligent enough to know how to do your job well. And I think that whenever you are, have a higher IQ or you've been doing the job longer, you just know different tricks that you can do. The different people you can call. You can kind of piece it together like a puzzle, versus sometimes I think especially, we see this with clients. They're oh my gosh, what do I do? And you're like, well, we have so many different options to do. And I think if you get in that panic of like, oh, I don't know what to do. And, the option could be, I'm going to call my QB and we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
I don't have the answers, but I'm going to find them. But I think if you get in that panic mode, which is a little bit of both, I guess, little EQ and IQ, I think you can get in a slippery slope either way.
So
I don't think one's more important than the other.
So it's fair to say that you put pretty well equal weight on IQ versus EQ.
Yeah.
Shannon, what are your thoughts on that?
Not that I disagree with Aspen, but I definitely think the emotional intelligence is probably a little more important, because having all the answers is great, but a lot of times we can find the answers. But if we haven't built that relationship with the customer or whoever it is, whether it's your kids or your significant other or just somebody at the grocery store, it doesn't matter. Unless you're not able to connect, then no amount of what I have in my arsenal of solutions or how to handle things or ideas are really going to matter if the person on the other side isn't receptive to that. If I have not conveyed to them that I am in charge and I am the voice of reason and I know I've got us, I've got this.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And I think, and I've seen a lot of people that have been to school with a lot of people that are extremely smart. I mean, on the IQ chart, they're through the roof, but their social skills are lacking.
Engineers.
Yeah. Engineers.
We love our engineers.
We love our engineers.
I have a lot of friends that are engineers and I do love them, but they are definitely a different breed.
Yeah.
They're very intelligent and they don't have the emotional side down.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. In fact, I'm dealing with a great guy right now. He's one of my clients and he is more engineer minded. Mm-hmm. So our conversations, I'm aware of that. And maybe that's the emotional intelligence component. I'm aware of how he communicates and his style and his thought patterns. So I communicate with him on that level because he doesn't want the fluff. He doesn't care what, the story is necessarily with this buyer. He wants to understand what are they asking? What are my obligations? He gets down in the weeds and there's nothing wrong with that. But the engineer-minded people are definitely more difficult to communicate with.
Those are my favorite type of clients.
And you let us know? Yeah.
Yeah. I just want the facts.
Yeah.
And look at it like
leave your emotions at home.
Anytime I look at real estate, really, I know it is not for everybody, but it really comes down to numbers. And there's the emotional side of it, of course. If it's your forever house, but I think because I moved a lot growing up too, I'm like, you can get another house. I just don't put too much into you really do. You can find something else, and if you had to move, you could find another house that you love. Mm-hmm. You could. But I do think some people get really attached to the house, and I'm a numbers person. I love running the numbers, which is probably why I do investment commercial mainly, but it really the engineer just give me the quick with the one word response emails. Oh, I love it.
There's no fluff there.
There's no fluff.
So
see an exclamation
just for our audience
right.
to know, Paul puts 3 exclamation points on when he's talking to Aspen, just to
3, 10.
You told me you don't like it.
So
you
had
newsletter come out with exclamation points.
Yeah, you should
have just told me you love exclamation points. I'm like, dang it, I got to do something different now.
Period. Yeah.
But I want to, if I may,
yes, sir.
Just to go back on what you guys were saying about the difference between EQ and IQ, being in leadership and you're going about a meeting or something like that, and then somebody that would, an IQ asking you a question, that panic that you get when you go, I don't have this answer right now, and you have a room of people looking at you, that's where the EQ has to take over, and you say, whatever comes out needs to be not panic, but we're going to find out. Or does anybody else know, what we're talking about here or have more information than I do?
Have the emotional maturity to put the ego aside.
Yeah. And let the rest of the group fill in your gap.
Yeah.
I think it's a high EQ. And I think good leaders really have that. I don't need to know all the answers right now, but I'm going to lean on everybody else in the room. And we're going to find the best answer. Yeah,
that's a great point. And also sourcing and understanding the source of these panic moments, right? Mm-hmm. So being able to discover that within yourself, like these things are my triggers. Like sometimes, just with my kids, I have a tendency to be pretty calm, and then something happens and I can go like bonkers on my children, and not in a bad way. I mean, me being a little bit of a hothead sometimes as a dad is okay. Mm-hmm. But I got to go go, okay, what triggered me to do that? Oh, is it because I've said it 6 times and then they asked me the same question? If that's okay, or if that's what it is, I need to recognize that and say, okay, on the 7th time, I need to not blow my top or, lose it. But those are things that people with emotional intelligence continue to look at, right? They're trying to always grow. And I think you made a good point, Aspen, is that it's like your obligation as an adult to try to make yourself better. And that's part of what, this conversation is today, is that a lot of people don't think about the emotional intelligence component in a transaction or in your personal life, and how it can affect the outcome of your life. Because if you're constantly up against the wall with people and how you communicate, and maybe you may seem toxic to people, you're not aware of your emotional traits, you're not working on them and trying to improve them, it will definitely affect your trajectory in life. Any more thoughts on that part of it?
No, none.
None.
Well, I keep thinking back to, I'm talking to my kids right now. I've got 2 high schoolers and a middle schooler, and, bullying your friend group, getting kicked out of your friend group, trying to make new friends, or my oldest, her friend has a boyfriend now. So they're trying, so she's lost her friend to the
third wheel.
So
yeah.
They're trying to set her up with people, and it's, it's not going good. But the conversations that I continually have is how you react to these situations. How are you dealing with it? What is important to you, and what, you can't just lock yourself in your room and that's going to fix all the problems. And you can't be mad at the world, because also that doesn't fix all the problems. So teaching emotional intelligence when you are still learning how to do it yourself it's not always the best.
Yeah. All right. I got to say, just speaking on that reminds me of something, we really should give your mom some props for that. Because I can remember you always telling me when you were a kid, your mom would always say, no matter what, if you go to the store or something happens, she would say, well, how are you going to handle that when you're a business owner? Well, how are you going to handle that when you're a grown-up? Well, she was prepping you, whether it's realized or not, in an early age, how to be emotionally intelligent, because we do tend to just not have those discussions with our kids. We just say, don't worry, they don't know what they're talking about, or,
this will blow over,
or
dismissive,
whatever. Exactly. Yeah. Instead of like what you're doing with your kids or what your mother did with you, actually talking it through and challenging them back on what's happening and how would you handle it. And that's what gets you thinking. Yeah. And that will carry on into adulthood.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said there. And I appreciate you bringing that up, because Mom, if you are listening, thank you. I love you for all the help growing up. But my mom would do that. So she would say, now, when you're the leader, how would you respond to that? And so as a young kid, 8 or 9 years old, I'd go, wow, I'm a leader. I could be a leader. I can think about things like that and how it impacts other people. And that was one of the biggest things that my mom taught me. And that was one of the pillars, was empathetic. Now, there can be a downside to being too empathetic for someone, right? And then you're trying to get into their world, and you may try to adjust what their trajectory or whatever is. But you have to be able to put yourself in their shoes to some degree and say, okay, maybe I understand why they're acting this way or saying something, or they're upset, or the emotions that are coming out there. So thank you for that, Shannon. It brought back some memories.
Yeah, she's a great lady.
Yeah. Well, that's, I seem to be okay.
Yeah. You didn't she did all right. She did something right.
Okay. So let's move on to the next part of this. Is the speed round. And Paul, I'm going to start with you. What's the best way to hone your skills with emotional intelligence?
I think just putting yourself out there. I mean, having, if you get involved in your community, get involved with, different groups, different organizations, make friends, all that stuff. But more interaction with people will definitely hone your skills. And putting yourself in a this is a great job. If you want to be a realtor, you need it.
Yeah.
You need to have emotional intelligence. Parenting is a great way to hone your skills.
So live in life, basically.
Yeah, in life.
Don't be a recluse.
Practice.
Be a grown-up. Sorry.
Yeah. I love that. No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, putting yourself out there, because a lot of people have, and especially since COVID, we've seen a lot of people just kind of shell in and not, and I hate to even say that word. It's been several years, but that was kind of a byproduct of that. People kind of sheltered in place, and now they lack human communication and interaction, which is something that's so healthy for people. Aspen, what are your thoughts on what's the best way to hone your skills with emotional intelligence?
I think being self-aware and asking, why am I reacting that way? But I think having like an accountability partner, whether it's a spouse or a friend, that you can kind of say, why am I feeling this way? Is this valid? Am I overthinking it? Therapy, I think, is great. I think more people should do it. Also, just reading different books. I know whenever I had my second kid, I read the book, How Children Learn. And I can't remember a lot from that book. It was a long time ago, but one thing that stuck with me was you should speak to your children the way you would speak to someone you admire, love, and respect. And so it was like, and then it kind of gave examples of like a boss you appreciate, like someone that's kind to you, not, someone that, not how we always have like you talk the meanest to the people you love the most. It was like, not like that. You should talk to them like someone, at this level that you really admire.
Right.
And that just really stood out to me. And it really kind of changed the way that I parented, because I grew up in a pretty strict household with lots of rules and pretty high volume. And that's how I kind of was for the first few years. And I kind of drastically shifted the way I parented after reading that book. So I think, it comes in all different things, and different things will stick with you. So I think you have to do a little bit of everything to hone those skills.
Yeah, that's great. Good for you for the pivot. That's fantastic. And becoming aware. That was one of the pillars. Become aware of your emotions.
Yeah, that's actually what I was going to say, is self-awareness.
Yep.
I think just being self-aware, making yourself aware, keeping that top of mind, that's the best way to hone all of those skills.
Yep. Well, to round it out, I agree with everybody. I think you need to put yourself out there. You need to be self-aware. You need to read. You need to study. And you also need to practice it. So that's how the best people do it, is that you're a grown-up now, and we're counting on you to continue to learn to be a better person. We like that. So speaking of better people and being a better person, let's talk about my favorite part of the podcast, and that's the Lyons Pride. As the Lyons Group members, we go out into our community and we give back in different ways to help our community move forward and become a better place to live. And we like to highlight those individuals, entities, or organizations, events that do the same. So Paul Berry, you are up with the Lyons Pride today. Right. Did you even study this? Or?
It's me.
Yeah, okay. So
Paul's like,
Paul,
not for
you
me.
want to take this, or you want to take this?
Either way.
All right, it's my
Paul,
turn.
you're up.
All right. Well, this week, I should have probably done a little bit more studying on this one, but I'd like to bring in Kenny Anderson, who is the owners of the local Taco Bells. He is heavily involved in the community, and one of the charities that I contribute to is the Boys and Girls Club. And if you've gone through the drive-thrus at Taco Bell, they always ask if you want to round up to give money to the Boys and Girls Club. He's in a lot of other organizations, and he does a lot of great things for this. He employs a lot of young people, and they do a pretty good job over there. So Kenny Anderson's my pick for this week.
Well, that's a great pick. Kenny Anderson and his family. Fantastic people, have done a lot for this community over the years. And it's really rare when you call Kenny up and you say, would you be willing to help with this or that he actually has to say no. I understand he does say no occasionally, but man, as a business owner, you get hit up all the time. But for all the yeses that they do in our community, for our kids, the Anderson family, thank you for doing what you do. We like to let you know that we see you here at the Lyons Group. We recognize you. We want to thank you for all your service in helping this area become better, and specifically for our kids and the Boys and Girl Club and rounding up. We always round up our order there. So thank you for that, Kenny, and welcome to the Lyons Pride. So that rounds us out for today's discussion. Thank you for that emotional intelligence. It's very important for you to understand, become aware if you're not aware. Become aware of your emotions, how they can steer your decisions, how you use your emotions to communicate, and what's an appropriate method to do that, because it can definitely help you in life and it can certainly hurt you. So become aware of your emotional intelligence and make it better. You're an adult. So thank you for listening to this episode of The Den. Until next time, we'll see you then. Thank you for listening to The Den, powered by the Lyons Group. Hit the subscribe button to keep informed on real estate happenings. If you'd like to learn more about the Lyons Group, visit sjc.com. sjcbroker.com. Complex markets require complex strategies. The Lyons Group can give you a true advantage in any market. Whether you're buying or selling, residential or commercial, contact us directly at sjcbroker.com. We're time-tested experts with a client-first approach, and we'll see you next time in the Den.